auditorium will come to order. We are now holding the farewell tour celebration of the Greeley FFA Chapter. Mr. Vice President, are all officers at their stations?
I shall call the roll of officers and report back to you, Madam President. The Sentinel.
Station by the door.
Why by the door?
Through the door, past many friends of the FFA, it is my duty to see that the door is open to our friends at all times and that they are welcome. I care for the meeting room and paraphernalia. I strive to keep the room comfortable and assist the President in maintaining order.
The reporter.
Stationed by the flag.
Why by the flag?
As the flag covers the United States of America, so I strive to inform that every man, woman, and child know that the FFA is a national organization that covers from the state of Alaska to the Virgin Islands and from the state of Maine to Hawaii.
The treasurer.
Stationed at the emblem of Washington.
Your duties there?
I keep a record of receipts and disbursements, just as Washington kept his farm accounts, carefully and accurately. I encourage thrift among the members and strive to build up our financial standings through savings and investments. George Washington was better able to serve his country because he was financially independent.
The secretary.
Stationed by the ear of corn.
Your duties there?
I keep an accurate record of all meetings and correspond with other secretaries wherever corn is grown and FFA members meet.
The advisor.
Here by the owl.
Why by the owl?
The owl is a time-honored emblem of knowledge and wisdom. Being older than the rest of you, I'm asked to advise you from time to time as the need arises. It is my hope that that advice is always based on true knowledge and ripened with wisdom. Vice Presidents, why do you keep the plow at your station?
The plow is the symbol of labor and tillage of the soil. Without labor, neither knowledge nor wisdom can accomplish much. My duties require me to assist at all time in directing the work of our organization. I preside over meetings in the absence of our president, whose place is beneath the rising sun.
Why is the President so stationed?
The rising sun is a token of a new era in agriculture. If we will follow the leadership of our president, we'll be led out of the darkness of selfishness and into the glorious sunlight of brotherhood and cooperation. Madam President, all officers are at their stations.
Thank you, Vice Presidents. The Secretary will call the roll of all members.
There are currently 150 members in attendance, Madam President.
Thank you. FFA members, why are we here?
To practice brotherhood, honor agricultural opportunities and responsibilities, and develop those qualities of leadership which an FFA member should possess.
May we accomplish our purpose. I now declare this farewell tour celebration duly open for transactions of business or attention of any matters which may properly be presented.
Hello, everyone. I'm Aiden Dattery. First off, I want to thank you so much for being here tonight and talk to you a little bit about what it's like to be an FFA member today. We are so thankful to see representation from our community supporters, state FFA officers, CSU's Ag Education team, the Colorado FFA Foundation, and so many more. I have grown up learning and living agriculture, but nothing has been as influential in my vocational knowledge as the agricultural education programs themselves. I'm a student in mechanics and animal science classes, where I learn all about woodworking and welding in the shop, as well as lessons on animal biology and behaviors in the classroom. The most important lessons I learn, however, are outside of the school entirely. The agricultural education programs provided me with my most impactful experiences in leadership. As a chapter vice president and the district secretary, I continue to learn more and more about what it means to be an effective leader, as well as how to better support and impact others. As I visited with some of you before the event tonight, I learned that while my story is significant, it is not unique. Ag education has positively impacted the lives of each person with us tonight, and we are so thankful to section off some time in our busy lives to celebrate that impact. Thank you for joining us tonight as we celebrate the legacy of agricultural education and FFA in our community. There's a wide spectrum of emotions involved with our transition into Greeley FFA's 4th classroom home. But tonight we are committed to living into the joy and celebration that comes when we connect through the decades. Tonight we will stroll through the program's history, hear personal stories of impact from members spanning 7 decades, and honor the ag teachers who have had a lasting impact on this program and community. Let's start with a look back through the history. Please turn your attention to this screen to watch a video catalog of our program through the years.
Hello everyone, my name is Emily Fickbaum. I am the Program Director for Agriculture, Natural Resources, and Energy for the state of Colorado. I'm excited to be able to lead the work of agricultural education into the future. Agricultural education first became part of the public education system in 1917 when the U.S. Congress passed the Smith-Hughes Act, which provided federal support for CTE programs. The original purpose of agricultural education was to provide students with the technical knowledge of the agriculture industry and operations so they could take back new and innovative strategies to their farms in the 6 pathways of animal science, plant science, food science, agribusiness, natural resources, and power structural technical systems. Agricultural education runs on a 3-circle framework for students to be well-rounded in leadership through FFA, in the implementation of their technical content through work-based learning or SAEs, and then the gained knowledge of innovation and advancement in the technical content. The 3-circle model helps prepare students for their future career in the agriculture industry by providing them with premier leadership, personal growth, and career success opportunities. In Colorado, we have 127 agricultural education programs representing both rural and urban populations with over 7,000 FFA members. Nationally, there are over 800,000 students who participate in formal agricultural education instructional programs throughout 50 states and 3 territories. Agricultural education leads the way for CTE and helps prepare students for their future in agriculture.
Hello, I'm Kent Noxner, State FFA Advisor. On behalf of Colorado FFA, I would like to congratulate the Greeley West FFA Chapter and Ag Ed program for many, many years of great success. Colorado FFA began in 1929. We had nearly 400 students in about 30 programs across the state. Today, nearly 100 years later, we have nearly 8,000 FFA members in 135 programs in Colorado. You know, Greeley West has been part of our history for a long, long time. Having had a number of students that have served as state FFA officers over the years, star farmers, state winning championship teams, proficiency award winners, etc. The success has always been there for many years, and that is primarily due to the quality of teachers and the dedication of the school to having a quality program. You know, whether it's teaching students ag mechanics skills, teaching them about the horticulture industry, the animal science industry, or agribusiness, Greeley West has always been a well-rounded program that has been teaching students based on the students' needs and desires. Again, I just congratulate each and every one of you for your hard work and dedication, and am excited to see the future of Greeley West FFA and Ag program in the new facilities. Thank you so much.
In our history, when the first program and they first started teaching agriculture education, they started in the basement of what is now Greeley Central High School. It used to be Greeley High School. They actually had a small shop, classroom, and that's where they had about 30 boys at a time in the shop, 30 total in the program. not at a time. And then from there in the 1950s, they built the new ag shop, and it was a running joke that the superintendent messed up because he didn't put a garage door in it. And the building just had 4 walls, and that is now the Health Science Academy. In 1973, it moved to its 3rd home here at Greeley West High School, with the horticulture program being added and the mechanic shop. And then here in just a few weeks, we're going to move into our new facility that is almost 12,000 square feet dedicated to agriculture education. Weld County is one of the highest producing agriculture counties in Colorado and in the nation, followed behind just 2 of the few really large California vegetable producing counties. It's only logical and sensible that the largest program in the state be here, based in Greeley, Colorado, the hub of all the ag industry in Weld County. If you look at our major employers, they're almost all ag enterprises. Greeley's had a long tradition and history of being the agriculture leader and the hub for Weld County, which is the hub of Colorado's agriculture.
The Greeley FFA officer team and alumni committee would like to thank George Oberleitner from the District 6 Communications team for preparing such a neat catalog of photos and information about the program through the years. You will notice that the first agricultural education classes in Greeley started during the 1918 school year. The farewell tour celebration is certainly about celebrating the transition of the program into a new state-of-the-art facility, but it is also about giving voice to the decades of impact and legacy that have come before us. We are honored to have voices of the program's past represented tonight. It is my honor to invite to the stage several individuals representing many years of agricultural education in Greeley. Representing the 1950s, Al Magnuson. Representing the 1960s, John Stensel. Representing the 1970s, Russell Perney. Representing the 1980s, Marianne Johnson. Representing the 1990s, Kim Redden. Representing the 2000s, Carly Copes. Representing the 2010s, Kristen Schmidt. Representing the 2020s, Aliyah Blackwell. I am also pleased to introduce our panel moderator, Michaela Fenton, Greeley FFA class of 2017.
Thank you, Joey. Welcome to each of you, and thank you all for being here tonight. We're so excited to have you. All. We knew we couldn't celebrate the legacy of our program without including the personal stories of each of you and all that you carry. Instead of having each of you prepare elaborate speeches, I thought having a conversation heart to heart would be the best way to do this. So let's start by having each of you introduce yourselves again, and let's have you get us started with telling us how you became involved in the ag program.
Hi guys, my name is Aliyah Blackwell, and I started in the agro program my sophomore year in 2018. I started getting really involved my freshman year when I was asked if I wanted to feed baby goats in the shop in the morning, and who could say no to that? So, of course, I went every morning and at lunch to feed baby goats and baby sheep. And then after that, my sophomore year, I started getting really involved, started applying for officer positions, and really enjoyed it.
I love the baby goats, Leah. That's great. I'm Kristen Schmidt. I first got involved in agricultural education long before I walked through the doors at Greeley West High School. I like to say that I played dress up in ag ed. I found my dad's FFA jacket in our coat closet probably when I was about 7. And from that point, I started prompting him and asking him questions about what is this dusty old corduroy thing and how do I get one of my own? And those questions started off, just kind of fun and the musings of a kid. But as I got closer to coming into high school, the excitement to be a part of something that's such a rich part of our family's tradition became really real. And it's exciting for me tonight. There's 3 generations of my family that have all been a part of this program and have been impacted by the men that we're going to honor tonight in the audience. And so it's really great to be with you all this evening.
Good evening, I am Carly Coppice, and how I got involved in the agriculture program was when they came to visit my junior high school, and that was when I first discovered that there was an ag program at Greeley West, and I was born and raised on horses. I mean, I was on a horse since I could sit up, and that's how I know this wonderful lady next to me too, and it was just a great opportunity to be able to expand my family's history and understand, we came from farmers and ranchers, and so it was a great opportunity for me to really truly connect with my past and my family, and just be able to expand that and be able to have lasting relationships with so many people that I'm so excited to see here this evening. And so that's how I got involved with ag, and I was just loved every single minute of it.
Thanks. I'm Kim Redden, and I graduated from Greeley West in 1991, and like a few of you, I was already involved in agriculture. My first really segue into agriculture was being on my grandparents' farm in Johnstown. I had 4-H projects, breeding cattle predominantly, and I thought I was going to be a veterinarian. So being in ag class was an important thing, and if you were going to, be in animal science and be a veterinarian. So I did not turn out to be a veterinarian, but I did major in animal science, and I have Mr. Carwin to thank for that. So that's what I'm here for tonight.
I'm Marianne Johnson. My older brother was an FFA and ag, and listening to his stories, I thought, ooh, that's the place for me. That's what I want to do. In 9th grade, I went to sign up for ag, and the counselor was totally against it. He objected, gave me a list of reasons why I should not be in ag. So in the fall, when I got my class schedule, there was no ag class. I had French and chemistry, and I'm like, what am I going to do with French and chemistry? So a couple weeks into the school year, Mr. Carwin stops me in the hallway, and he says, are you Doug's sister? I'm like, well, yes, I am. Why aren't you in ag class? I'm like, well, I signed up for it, but I have French and chemistry. He's like, do you like those classes? I'm like, no. He said, well, you need to go talk to your counselor right now. And I did, and I was in ag, and that was the beginning of that.
Hi, I'm Russ Perney. I basically was one of those kids that didn't belong anywhere. I was forced to go to Greeley West, and at that time, FFA, the ag program, was at Greeley Central. So that's why I did it. I just wanted to go to Central. I turned out that my senior year it came back to West, so it was a moot point. But it was a life-changing experience. I'm glad I did it.
I'm John Stensel, born and raised northeast of Greeley on an irrigated farm. We raised, sugar beets, pinto beans, and corn, and we also fed cattle. And I was involved in 4-H as well. So when I finished my 8 grades at the country school, I ended up at Meeker Junior High. And then from Meeker Junior High, I was at Greeley Central, which was just Greeley High. Anyway, my parents thought that I really should be in the VOAG program. And they suggested that I sign up for the program when I became a sophomore. And I thoroughly enjoyed the 3 years that I served, and was in the VOAG program at Greeley Central. And I also want to, thank everyone who provided the VOAG program, but especially Mel Adams, our ag teacher, because leadership for me came easily, and Mel Adams just helped put the star on the cake.
And I'm Al Magnuson. I came to Greeley High at... Oh, thank you. I came to Greeley High from Briggsdale. My folks owned a Hereford cattle ranch out there, and I was planning on being a veterinarian as well. A lot of us didn't end up there. But if I'm going to be a veterinarian, I needed better education than I could get in the small school. My folks thought, and I agreed with that. So I ended up here at Greeley Central, totally overwhelmed and awed, because there were more people in my voc ag class than what there was in the whole school out where I'd come from. And this was rather intimidating. So I was the quiet little guy that sat and did what he was supposed to do and didn't get in trouble. And it was Mel Adams that picked me up and pushed me through, but I'll tell you more about that later.
Technical difficulties? Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you all so much for sharing those stories. And now we have some more fun questions for you all, because we know that the individual paths that led you all here have rich history, and we're excited to really just dive into more of that. So my first question goes to Marianne, Al, and Aliyah. And you guys, we can go this way to answer them. What is your favorite memory from your time in FFA?
Unlike a lot of the wonderful people on this panel, I was not fortunate enough to be able to grow up in agriculture. I grew up in a very urban area. So a lot of the things that I learned to appreciate from FFA tended to be the smaller things that maybe some other people wouldn't necessarily have enjoyed because of stuff they would have done at home. But my favorite memory would have to be my senior year, being able to skip the first half of class and go to the feed store for Kelly all the time and head out and catch loose goats and loose pigs and be able to take the trailer to petting zoos. That was definitely one of my favorite things about being in ag.
There's so many great memories, tons of them that I could share, but for me, it was the many, many times that Mr. Carwin would take the time to speak with me about what was important in my life and what my goals were. And he helped me with my self-confidence. And for this shy, dyslexic, middle of 7 children, that was huge for me. The confidence he built in me was just the best. And my younger sister, she is a veterinarian, and she says without Mr. Carwin, she would not have made it to vet school and made it through.
And for me, it's really the contests. I don't know why that grabbed me as much as it did, but it was absolutely stimulating to get ready for these different contests. And I think as a sophomore, I was on a team that went to state in poultry judging. As a junior, we went in crop judging. And as a senior, we went in potatoes and were the first team in several years not to come back with the top honors. So not all of those memories are positive. There's nothing worse than losing after everybody ahead of you won.
No kidding. I feel like all of us could probably be here till midnight sharing with you all of our favorite memories. And I'm sure many of you have some of the same memories out there. And so I just appreciate y'all sharing that. Our next question goes to Kim, Russell, and Carly. And it says, tell us about your experiences in ag education and how FFA impacted your career journeys.
I'm up? Okay. Let me just tell you, there's been so many changes in the 60-some years that I was in the FFA and the VOAG program. And I think the one thing that stands out most for me as it relates to the program are the young ladies that are in the program. I can't believe how many there are. I think there's more young women in the FFA and the VOAG program than there are young men. So in terms of change, those young ladies have brought about a lot of change within the organization over the years that they've been a part of it. And I appreciate all you've done. Another thing that has happened, I think along the way, is that we created a Colorado FFA Foundation. And that change in itself has given so many young people the opportunity to do so many things, whether it's scholarships, special programs, all the things that Don is involved with. And I think it's gone a long ways, and this is another way to support that program. And then the last thing I'd just like to mention in terms of change, I don't know how many of you have seen the new vocational ag classroom and shops. And I know that out in the foyer there's a diagram of it, if you didn't. But what we did at Greeley Central in that small classroom in our shop, and then the one that is here in this building, compared to the one that's in the new building, all the new ideas, thoughts, and technology, you young people who are involved in the program today, it's going to be just great for you. Thank you.
So I think the best way to explain my journey, even though I didn't make veterinarian, the information and the knowledge that I got from my classmates, the officer team, the officers I worked with on a regional level, and then also going through college and still having those relationships with students, and the background and the knowledge that I got from Mr. Carwin, and the enthusiasm and the encouragement that he always gave students when they had something that maybe they didn't think that they could go for, and he pushed them the extra mile, or even an extra inch just to get them down the road that much further. I think that was really what kept me in the agriculture realm for so long, and then ultimately brought me back. It was shortly after his passing that I realized I'd been out of school for 10 years and I wasn't working in agriculture. And even in that inspirational thought process that I had, he pushed me back to ag. And I went from 10 years in basically recruiting and HR to going and working for the National Onion Association, and then spent 14 years working for them. And I'm still working in ag. I'm working in a different capacity now, but it was an inspiration, both the students and the friends that I had in FFA, being an officer, and of course, Mr. Carwin.
For me, I mean, being an elected official for Weld County now, going on my 8th year, it all started with my first election, and that was becoming the FFA Sentinel for the Greeley FFA chapter. And that was a very impactful time, like as Kim was stating, being able to be a part of the officer team and being able to help fellow students. And I have some of the officers that were ahead of me. I know Katie's in here. She was the treasurer before me. She was a rock star, and she was a great example. And so being a young freshman and sophomore, and then my sophomore year becoming an FFA officer, and then following the footsteps of so many of the officers prior to me as well, that really helped me understand that I really did have a public servant heart. And so when I've never expected to be an elected official, let me tell you that. I also was planning on being either a lawyer or a veterinarian. Didn't make it as veterinarian, still working on the lawyer part, but but it definitely was just how you could see when you become an officer, you become involved in FFA, just how much of salt of the earth people that you get to meet, and how it really, because of Mr. Carwin and the last conversation that I had with him, really just impacted me. And when the opportunity came for me to step up and decide if I was going to put my hat in as a 27-year-old running for an elected office in Weld County, and then ultimately becoming the youngest elected to the position in Weld County history. It all started because I was the FFA Sentinel.
Well, I don't really know if anybody knows what my career is. My wife says that I just show up and they give me big checks. She can't explain it. But the way it started, you know, in the ag program, it's very diversified. We had a small shop in Central, very small, and one of my least favorite things to do there was weld. Right now, about a third of my chargeable hours are welding. It's a little different kind, it's TIG welding, and I really hope that you'll put that into your program because it's a very, very good vocation to have. But I'm in the food industry. It's really helps a lot to know where that food comes from when you're processing it and packaging it and getting it on down the road. So, you know, the VOAG program really did put me in the right direction, and I've used it a lot.
Wow, you all have such neat stories, and we're very thankful for you sharing those. We know that there are 3 pillars of the mission in FFA. It's premier leadership, personal growth, and career success. And your stories do embody every bit of those. So, Kristen and John, you have both served in and around the FFA in agricultural education in a variety of ways. I know, John, you just touched on this, but Kristen, could you tell us what positive changes you've seen or been a part of at the local, state, and national levels?
Thanks, Michaela. I think it's so energizing sometimes to just take a step back and reflect on those experiences. And as I was chatting with one of my uncles this weekend about his time in the Blue Jacket and in agricultural education, we got, off onto a tangent conversation about all the shenanigans that they did when Mr. Adams was their ag teacher, and something about going to feed the calves, and somebody brought a bull rope, so you might as well buck them out, right? And it just was a great refresher and a great reminder of the permanence of this organization and holding on to the things that matter and chasing after the innovation that moves us forward. And that beautiful balance between that tradition of being a part of agricultural education, bringing up young people through leadership and a mind of service, has stayed consistent, right? And that stays the same. But the methods that we use to do that and the tools that we use to reach people in different places and different spaces all around the country and in some cases around the world, I think it is the coolest change that I've been a part of, as an FFA member and even a pre-FFA member, right? All the way from little 7-year-old Kristen picking up a jacket and not understanding what the depth of that tradition means, all the way to a 20-something Kristen unzipping her jacket for the last time at National FFA Convention and understanding the weight and the gravity of that balance between our tradition and our progress, the things that we cling to and that we continue to pull through as consistent pieces of everybody's experience, and that next innovation or that next hurdle that we're chasing to get after. So if I had to kind of sum up my experiences and just being a part of that change, I would say it's extremely refreshing. And while our colors might be blue and gold, this organization is evergreen. And I think that's a really neat gift that we've been given as a part of a student-led organization that's really focused at that grassroots level.
I guess, I said a lot of the things that I wanted to say earlier about the changes over the last 60 years. And I think what I see in the program today, it's more, I want to say diverse. It's much broader in many ways. And I think that I'd just like to add that everyone who is in the program, whether you come from the farm or ranch, or you come from the city or the town, there is opportunity for you in the VOAG program. There's a lot that is I think, good training, but it all helps you in your later life.
Well, you both really have shown us that over the years, the Greeley FFA organization has seen very significant changes and milestones that have allowed us to stay relevant over 100 years. But in the midst of all of that change, some things have remained the same. And that is the impact that ag education has, and that the agricultural education providers give to each one of us as our FFA advisors, our coaches, our mentors, our letters of recommendation writers, all of the things that they do for us. So let's wrap up our conversation. One last question for all of you on how your ag teacher has impacted your life. And we can start on that end and work our way this way if you want.
I think back to the impact that Mel Adams had on me. It was all related to leadership. I was a shy kid. I didn't want to be in front. I can remember as a sophomore, he came to me in the spring and said, "Magnuson, I think you ought to run for Sentinel." If he thought so, it must be the way it ought to be. So I ran for Sentinel and had a great year serving in that capacity, learned Robert's Rules of Order, forwards and backwards. And so in the spring of my junior year, he came and said, "Magnuson, you've done a good job as Sentinel. You know the rules, Robert's Rules and Orders. I think you ought to run for president." And lo and behold, I found myself as a president. And he kept pushing me forward, always in areas of leadership. So the thing that stands out to me about Mel Adams and about FFA is leadership. He was the best mentor that I think I ever had in all of my life. And although I didn't stay in agriculture, I've spent my life in ministry. What I have done has been highly impacted by Mel Adams and all that he taught me about leadership.
Alvin and I have not talked about this, but the one thing for me, again, is leadership. I think that Mel Adams did the same thing with me that he did with you. Found a place for me in being one of the officer or part of the officer team. And I not only, served as chapter president my senior year, but I was a district officer and then I became a state officer. And that leadership training, whether it's parliamentary procedure, whether speech contests, whatever it might have been, it was great training for me in high school. But in my later life, it gave me so many things, that I could do better. And I guess Mel Adams, was the person who actually, I think my first grade teacher was one of my best teachers. And then Mel Adams was the other person among all my teachers that really helped move me to all the things that I did along the way for the last, 60 years?
Well, I was the lucky one. I had Mel Adams and Merle Carwin for instructors. Mel Adams, I think the fondest memories of Mel were the smell of pipe tobacco, going into his office, and that guy had a laugh that was so endearing, and he could look you in the eye and really, really connect with you. Now, he never asked me to be president or run for president, but the one thing that I did notice about him is he called everybody by their last name. And to this day, most people call me by my last name, and I just don't know if Mel started it or how that worked out. As far as Mr. Carwin, my first experience really with Mr. Carwin was a public speaking contest. And somehow we got the wrong date sent to us. So we missed the contest. I don't think I have ever had anyone go to bat for me with such force as Mr. Carwood did. He made them reschedule that public speaking contest, even though it was just me and the previous winner. And he told me, he said, "Perny, you're not going to win this, but we're going to show them that we're here and we're here to stay." And you know what? We went and we did that contest. I did not win it. But that year, he pushed me clear up into state office. I won Star State Agribusinessman. I won a proficiency award in fish and wildlife management. And I went on to run for national office. So these two guys really did light a fire under me.
So I also had Mr. Adams. He would substitute for Mr. Carwin when Mr. Carwin was out. And so I was lucky in that aspect. Mr. Carwin also groomed me and talked me into being the secretary. Self-confidence, being able to stand up and speak for myself and go up to bat for other people, which in my life has helped me. I've been a Girl Scout leader. I've been a den mother. I've raised great kids. And in my job, I work in I don't work in agriculture, I work in floriculture, I work in wholesale floral, and that has given me great confidence to succeed. I've been doing it for 32 years, and I really enjoy that.
Mr. Carwin, what a guy. I still have this picture of him sitting in his office in the shop, and there's this pile of papers in front of him, and there's this little stream of smoke billowing from his ashtray in the office, and all I can think of is, dear God, he's going to burn this place down before I graduate. But he didn't. You know, Carwin was very strict. There was no BS in his class, but he made it fun. He made it real. And he always brought it down to a student's level. And he seemed to be able to figure out in class which level he needed to be at on that particular day with that particular subject. And I always appreciated that. And I also appreciated his pushing for people to stand up and do the right thing. Leadership, or another classmate, or just someone else in the school. And that was something that I thought was really cool. I don't think of any other teacher that I had that did that. And that was pretty outstanding to me. And he was just a good human being. And I think he carried that into his students. But he also was he expected a lot. So I remember him being very strict, but very fair. But then you could get him out in the shop, and he would do the funniest stuff, just cut up and be just like a little kid. So that's what I carry with me for Mr. Carwin. Oh, and one last thing. Seeing him on a pair of water skis, that's top notch, man.
Yeah, you had to wear sunglasses when you saw that, but those stack of papers never went away, by the way, because every time you went into his office, it was always just a stack of papers, and Miss Nepper, who was the home ec teacher, always was the one that had to come and enter his grades, because he was like not going to do it. He was refusing to enter the grades into the computer system. So if it wasn't one of the senior ag students, it was Miss Nepper putting the grades in for him, because otherwise we would not know what our grades were for the class. But I definitely agree with everything that you said. I mean, that is the most consistent thing with Mr. Carwin, was his constant pushing, and it didn't matter who you were, what your background was, he was going to be there, and he just had that knack to be able to have that special conversation with you. And it happened at the most random times too. It wasn't, he sought it out. He just always knew when to seize the opportunity. And, I don't know if this will play in the video, but definitely the most impactful conversation I had with him was the last one I had with him. And it was actually the evening before he passed away. And I had just finished track practice. I left my essay book in the ag room, and I was like, oh crap, like I got to put in yesterday's and today's records in there, like they're due to him tomorrow. And so fortunately, if you knew Mr. Carwin, he was the first teacher here, and he was always the last teacher to leave the school. And so fortunately, he was there, and we went in and I had a lengthy conversation with him, and that was just, again, it was totally unexpected, but he sees that opportunity, and that conversation in and of itself is the one that really pushed me to understand and see the leader within myself and be able to know that I can develop my speaking, I can do better at dairy judging, and I can do all these things. And he just had that way of being consistent, being there for you, even when you didn't think you needed him to be there for you. And I know every single Carwin student in here probably had some type of special moment with him in some way or some manner. And that is what makes not only ag, because obviously Mr. Adams also had that unique touch as well. And so it was just a great impact to have Mr. Carwin and be able to have had that last special moment before the next morning we got the heartbreaking news.
I feel like I had a really cool and unique experience. So confession time, folks. I went to private school until high school. And so my transition into high school was more than just like an 8th grader coming into being a freshman. It was a private school girl, like Christian school girl, coming to Greeley West. Thankfully, this was also Mr. Longacre's first year in the program, and so it was almost like I had my ride or die buddy and my ag teacher. And I don't know, at some point during that year, we must have made eye contact or shook hands and decided that this is going to be the year that we put the program back on the map. And to be involved in an effort to bring a somewhat disheveled program back into good standing, and to bring a program that maybe had been forgotten about or passed over for a period of time back into something that was excellent and that was life-giving for the students that were a part of it, that was second to none. And I'm so thankful that Mr. Longacre trusted me with those things, and he invited me into that space. I did not have the capability nor the qualifications, right, to be his partner in that, and to come alongside my other fellow students and the great parents and everybody that supported that. But just like we heard from each and every other person on this panel, he saw something, and in the chaos, he recognized it, and he took the time to coach me and to mentor me and to bring me in. And it's such a special time and a transformational time for me, not just because I grew in wisdom and skill, but because I grew, I think, in empathy and compassion. And if there's something that I learned from Mr. Longacre, that probably rises to the top of the list. As a young person that's very competitive, I would be sitting in his office frustrated that we weren't going over quiz bowl questions, or that whatever contest or frivolous thing I wanted to work on wasn't the top of his priority. And if I stopped and took a breath and watched the situation around me, well, Mr. Longacre's just over here changing lives. Don't worry, there's a student that might not graduate from high school without this critical conversation that Mr. Longacre is having with him. Or there's a student that is on the verge of being sucked into a gang, but don't worry, because Mr. Longacre's got his back, and he's productively engaging him in activities that are going to take him off of that path into a more productive one. And to be a front row seat, right, to have a front row seat to those conversations was truly the transformational experience for me. It wasn't about, the contests and all of the great things that we did together, or being thrown out of a moving vehicle in the middle of an intersection in Indianapolis because I was late for the national chapter dinner. Those are great, right? And those were really cool times, but just having a front row seat to watch him care and give and serve for students that came from all walks of life is probably the thing that I treasure most about that experience.
I don't think that anybody could say it any better. But I guess one thing that seems to be a common theme for all ag teachers is that they push you to do things that you think that you can never do. I walked into Kelly Longacre's classroom, a shy freshman who never could walk up in front of any stage like I am today, let alone talk in front of a class or more than 100 people. But Kelly pushed me to do public speaking and everything that I probably really didn't want to do at the time. But he was always there to push me to do competitions. He pushed me to run for presidency, and Even though it was scary to be president during the pandemic and everything going on and trying to find a new way to do everything, Kelly was always right there to help all of us through the hard times. And he's pushing me to run for state office this summer, and he still continues to impact my life every single day. Watching him teach kids and encourage kids to do things that maybe they want to do every other day is really awesome.
Thank you. I think from every single one of us in here, we all loved and appreciated hearing every one of your stories, and I appreciate you all answering my calls when I was like, hey, do you want to come do this thing? Your vulnerability and the way you just shared your testimony, I'm sure touched the lives of so many in here, and I just want to say thank you, and we appreciate you sharing today. Can we give them all one huge round of applause? Thank you all again. Each of those memories are special, but tonight we'd like to give a little extra focus to the moments of impact that revolve around ag teachers. It is my pleasure to call to the podium Katie, who will kickstart our legendary owl ceremony.
Thanks, Michaela, for facilitating that conversation. Teachers, mentors, coaches, advisors, travel coordinators, chaos wranglers, counselors, head ranchers, bus drivers, friends, and above all, agricultural education instructors wear many hats. They play a unique role in lives of students and make an impact so lasting that decades later, their students gather to honor efforts poured into them by their ag teachers. Celebrating the legacy of our program would not be possible without honoring the significant impact of the teachers that built, maintained, and at times fought for agricultural education in our community. The Colorado FFA Foundation has developed a special way to recognize ag teachers that lived, taught, and served in the capacity that far exceeds expectations. I'd like to invite Dawn Thorne, Colorado FFA Foundation Executive Director, to the stage as we prepare to honor several men who have made an immeasurable impact on the Greeley FFA program.
Thank you, Katie. It's a privilege to be here. I brought my FFA jacket, and a few of us outside in the hallways talked about how corduroy has a tendency to shrink over time, and mine did the same. It's a little smaller than it was when I wore it a few years ago. But as introduced, I am the director of the Colorado FFA Foundation and a former ag teacher. I taught for 13 years, and some of those years were the same years that Dutch Carwin was teaching, and just a few years after his son Bill started teaching. And so we know ag teachers have a huge impact. The jacket I probably should have brought, and the one I'm just as proud of, is my shop coat that I wore when I was teaching. And that's probably the one I should have brought to talk about ag teachers. 4 years ago, or 5 years ago roughly, in the state, people, team leaders, some of you who are here tonight, Mr. Ochsner and others that you would come to know, we figured out that across the state, we knew we were having a huge recruitment problem for people to become ag teachers. We also knew that there was a retention problem. When we looked at the data about 5 years ago, 50% of new teachers in the state in their first, second, or third year were quitting. They were going on to do something else. And that was a huge problem, losing half of our teachers every year, half of our new teachers every year. So we wanted to recruit teachers, but we knew retention was important. So because what makes Greeley so special is you just have these legacy teachers of Mel Adams, Dutch Carwin, Mr. Longacre, and others. But just some ag programs were turning a new teacher every 2 or 3 years at a high rate of speed. So that is what makes Greeley so special and unique, is these legacies of teachers that have been here for several years. So anyway, we as a state decided we needed to start doing some things to support new teachers and make sure they keep teaching because we want them, because it's so much better than when you have this revolving door. So one of the things that we did was we started this program called Local Teacher Success, and that program puts 2 former teachers on the road to wake up every day thinking about and mentoring first, second, and third year teachers. Last year, we had a retention rate of almost 90% of our teachers in that category, in their first, second, third year, which we think is impactful, right? Going from 50% to 90%, just because we know an ag teacher has to be all those things. A chaos coordinator, the counselor, the head wrencher, the bus driver, the friend, the pusher, all of those things. And that's not an easy job, especially when you don't have the support, or you might be the only one in the building going through that. So anyway, the reason I tell you about that program is a few years ago, we started a program called the the Blue Jacket Society, and you can see where people could give their FFA jacket to the foundation, and that supports scholarships for students, signing bonuses for new ag teachers. But we also know a lot of those jackets were given in honor of a teacher, Mel Adams being one of them, Dutch Carwin another, my ag teachers, both that had a huge impact on me. So we started this program, the foundation started this program last year as a way to support and recognize the contributions of teachers called the Legendary Owl. And the funds for the Legendary Owl program go to support that teacher mentor program. So it's really cool that a gift that gets a teacher recognition that they more than deserve for sure to be recognized as legendary will then turn around and support new teachers so they can become legendary in their own right, in their own community. So when Michaela reached out to me and told me that what you guys were doing here and the new school and the new facility, I thought it was just so cool to be invited to be part of your history, the rich history here at Greeley, and then also to tell you a little bit about our Legendary Owl program. So with that, Tucker, I think. All right, so that's our program, and I think we're going to have some exciting news and some things here. Thank you, Tucker, and thank you so much for the invitation to be here with all of you tonight. Thank you.
Well, thank you for sharing that overview of the Legendary Owl program. Your comments really drive home the magnitude of this honor and help reinforce why Greeley FFA is so honored and excited to introduce the Legendary Owls we have committed to add to the exclusive roster. Please turn your attention to the screen as we learn a little bit more about our first honoree, Mr. Mel Adams.
I don't think I would have become a state officer unless Mel Adams had prepared us for that effort. A lot of things, like I said, he gave us the tools in which to understand what was needed to be a good leader. And he himself was a leader within, his own right. He taught school in Wiggins before coming to Greeley, but he was our FFA teacher and VOAG instructor for 26 years at Greeley High. And I think during that time, he brought forth things that he learned in the U.S. Army. He was a World War II veteran. He got 2 degrees from CSU, became a VOAG teacher. He also, being in the Army, which I also served in the Army, understand, the strictness and the drills that you have to go through to get where you need to be. And I have to say that Mel Adams, in terms of being a legendary owl, in which we are trying to, promote with this celebration, but also make sure that he is remembered for the things that he did. I have to say that Mel was a great teacher. He was also compassionate, as I said. He did so many things to make sure that we all got the tools that we needed, whether we were going back to the farm or whether we were going to the university, whether we were going to serve in a leadership position or whatever. He worked very hard at that to make certain it happened.
It is my pleasure to invite Rhett and Jerry Adams to the stage to share some remarks in memory of their father, Mel Adams.
Thanks for having me here. My dad was a great public speaker. Me, not so much. But I remember he liked to start all of his programs with a joke. So I went on the internet and tried to find everything I could about the FFA. Everything that I came up with was so corny that I thought it better to just go get straight to it. My dad was born in 1913. He grew up on my grandfather's farm near Sterling. I'm quite sure that growing up on the farm helped him acquire the skill set that he needed to be a vocational ag teacher. At Sterling High School, he played basketball, was the FFA chapter president, and earned a college scholarship. Excuse me, I'm a little nervous. When he graduated from high school, he enrolled at CSU in Fort Collins. He worked his way through school, washing dishes and mopping floors. After finishing college, he took a job teaching as a VOAG teacher in Wiggins. When World War II started, Dad was called to active duty and served as an artillery officer in the Philippines. When the war ended, he came back to his job in Wiggins. By the late 30s, or by the late 40s, he was ready to move on to a better job. He had interviews in Greeley and Casper, Wyoming. My mom had an objection to going to Greeley. And can anybody that lived in Greeley in the 50s guess what that might have been? No? Well, the largest feedlot in the world was located north of Greeley, and more times than not, an unpleasant odor spread over the whole town. So my dad loaded my mom, my younger brother Rex, in the car, and we went to Casper. When we got there, the wind was blowing at hurricane force, and my mom said, Mel, let's take the job in Greeley. His first classroom in Greeley was on the third floor of what is now Greeley Central High School. What a difference between that room and the facilities that we saw today. In the early 50s, he started organizing the FFA Rodeo, which was always on Memorial Day and very popular. He spent countless hours on that, and his classroom duties, and supervising the lab northeast of Greeley. After listening to all of these people talk tonight about ag teachers, I think they must all be from the same gene pool, because he worked so hard, but he still found time to have a farm in our backyard. We always had sweet corn, tomatoes, strawberries, rabbits, and a vicious dog named Peppy who weighed at least 10 pounds. One summer, my brother Rex, my brother Terry, AKA Snoop, and I decided that those tomatoes would make a good snowball. We had a war with our neighbors' kids. Needless to say, my father was furious. I don't remember what he made us do because my memories shorted out after that. But needless to say, we never had any more summer snowballs. My dad was a guy with a really strong personality. I'd like to share a couple of stories that don't have much to do with the FFA, but due to his character. In 1966, I was drafted and sent to Vietnam. At that time, I had an old Chevy that I couldn't get out of second gear. The day before I went to the induction center, my dad and I pushed it into the yard. About a year later, one of his neighbors complained to the police 2 policemen came to the dad to tell him to move the car. He told him, my son's in Vietnam, and when he comes back, I'll move the car. I got back in February of 68, and my dad helped me fix the transmission, and I drove that car for a couple more years. Also, in January, Snoop Terry, AKA Snoop, my younger brother, was a senior at Central and a damn good basketball player. One Friday, Mom, Dad, and I went to the game in Fort Collins. Really won a really close game when Snoop sank 2 free throws at the end of the game. On the way back to the car, we encountered 2 groups of boys, one from Greeley, the other from Fort Collins. It looked like they were about to have a fight, but my dad stepped between them and ran them off. I couldn't believe the strong presence he exuded that night. Thanks for inviting me.
I've been a school teacher for over 30 years, but I've never been in a situation like this, speaking through a microphone. Anyway, have any of you heard about the FFA student that had an award-winning scarecrow? It was outstanding in the field. There was another FFA student that had a cow-calf operation going on. The mother cow said to the baby cow, "It's past your bedtime." As Gary said, that he thought my jokes were corny. I guess they probably pretty are, emphasizing the corny. Thanks for Is there a light up here?
Here, let me hold it for you.
No.
That helps.
Yeah, that helps. Anyway, thanks for honoring my dad and giving me the opportunity to speak about him, and specifically my thoughts about Dad's philosophy of education. Please bear in mind with me, I don't want to pull a Joe Biden up here like I already have. This is my teleprompter. No, I'm not.
His teleprompter doesn't work very well.
I'm going to give a short history on Dad becoming an ag teacher. Well, I don't have to do that anymore now. My brother already did that for me. Thank you, brother.
You're welcome.
I'm going to talk about Dad's philosophy of vocational education, and then I will sum it up by giving some advice to the students here, and thank you once again. Gary already mentioned Dad being in World War II and a battle that he was involved in. You won't believe, or believe it or not, World War II had a big impact on his teaching. I will get into that in more detail later. Dad's philosophy of vocational agriculture will sound right on to the vocational teachers in this room, because I earned my master's degree from CSU in vocational trade and industrial education. Thank you, everybody, for being here, particularly the teachers, particularly you students, and everybody else to come here and honor my dad and the previous ag teachers here. Anyway, getting on to his philosophy of vocational education, I'm pretty sure that Dad's philosophy of education and vocational ag was to help his students learn the knowledge and skills needed to become a happy, productive, responsible citizen, learning job entry-level skills in those areas of agricultural. I'm going to inject my own thoughts here as well. Teachers are not only teaching knowledge and skill, but pointing kids in the right direction through their interaction and guidance with them. That's what being an FFA advisor is all about. When I was a junior in high school, Dad told me that when he was in the war, he had to run across a field that was under fire from a machine gun. That's really hard for me to fathom. Wow. After he got to safety, he told himself that he would dedicate himself to becoming a happy, productive, responsible teacher. Sounds like his philosophy of education. Well, he sure did. Way to go, Dad. I'm glad he made it through the war. Otherwise, I would not be up here, and my brother would have been an only child. His career not only affected the life of his students, but mine hugely. Look at me. I'm a happy, productive, responsible citizen. Dad's philosophy worked on me too. I'm not sure it worked on Gary. Did it work on you, Gary?
I had a 35-year career that in Southern California that worked out pretty well for me.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks for letting me poke a little fun at you there, no brother. Anyway, I think there was a point in time when I was probably not the most responsible person that there was. But thanks to Dad and his philosophy, I grew out of that. And I think that my brother could testify too that I was probably far from being responsible at times. I spent a great deal of time in the ag shop with Dad, running the equipment, building things, and repairing my car. That was the start of me working with my hands and my mind. As several of the presenters have already said, he was a great mentor. Well, Dad was my first mentor in that area. At the time, I didn't realize that I was going to become a shop teacher. Look at me, I still got all 10 of these. Growing up, Dad pushed us in the direction of attending college when we graduated from high school. Thanks, Dad. That decision turned out great for me. Dad being an ag teacher and an FFA advisor has played a huge role in my life. And to sum things up here, and from just watching the students that are up here, they've already pretty well said what I was going to say is, and that the ag teachers are so important to you students that are sitting out here in the audience right now. I spent many hours being around ag teachers, and I enjoyed it thoroughly, and it's made a big impact on my life. Thank you all. I wish you all the very best. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak about my dad, and most importantly, for honoring my dad. He would truly be humbled if he were here. Thank you once again.
Thank you for sharing those remarks on behalf of your legendary father. Please accept this award as a gesture of your appreciation to service your family has proved to our chapter. Mr. Adams built a foundation that was only strengthened by the FFA advisors that followed in his footsteps. Please turn your attention to the screen as we learn a little bit more about our second honorary Dutch Carwin.
Hi, I'm Kim Redden. I was in Mr. Carwin's class in the late 80s and early 90s. I considered Mr. Carwin a legendary owl because of his great teaching ability, and specifically the way he would always ask us a lot of questions and always get us involved in the lesson itself, whatever he was doing, whether it was in the shop or in the classroom. He really engaged the students, and I think that was kind of uncommon at that point in time, at least to me and the teachers that I had, and Mr. Carwin was unique in that way. Very hands-on, giving you the time and the space to learn at your own pace, but also being instructional if needed. And I think my favorite memory of Mr. Carwin would be, as an officer, we had an officer's retreat and we went to the Sterling Reservoir, and that was the first time I really saw Mr. Carwin really cut loose, and to see him on a pair of water skis is a memory I will never forget.
Hello, I'm Carly Coppice, and I was a Mr. Carwin student. Some of my favorite memories of Mr. Carwin are associated with two words. If you were a student of him, I'm sure saying these two words will have a flood of different memories come back to you. And those two words are Judas Priest. If you had those words said to you, or you had those words said to classmates, I'm sure that they're probably making you chuckle as those memories come flooding back to you, as they also have come back to me as well. But really, one of my most impactful memories of Mr. Carwin was probably the last conversation I had with him before his untimely passing. I had just finished track practice, and I had forgotten my project book that I needed to get updated for my SAE, so I ran over to the ag room, knocked on the door. Mr. Carwin was still there. If you knew Mr. Carwin, you knew he was the first teacher in every morning and the last teacher to leave every night. And fortunately, he was there. I was able to come in and grab my book, and we ended up having a 25 to 30 minute long conversation. And I carry a lot of those words that he spoke to me during that meeting or conversation with me still to this day. He expressed to me during that time that he really felt that myself and one of my other ag class members, Joe Longan, that him and I were really shaping up to be the leaders of our class. And that was really impactful coming from Mr. Carwin. As you know, he didn't always express those type of things. And so to be able to have that moment with him and to have him express that he really truly believed that I was going to be a leader in whatever path that I took was very special. And he just had that way with words to make you feel like, you know, you can really continue to push yourself and you can drive and it's okay, and don't let others get in your way. Don't let, you know, peers or people that are older or younger than me stop me from doing what I want to do, and be the strong leader that he did see that I was becoming. And I believe that's really what has projected me into what I am now and what my future goals are continuing to be of being an advocate. So I greatly appreciate that memory with Mr. Carwin, and I'm very thankful I had forgotten my book that day to be able to have that special last conversation with one of the best men I've ever known in my life.
It is my pleasure to invite Mr. Carwin's representative to the stage.
Thank you. Unfortunately, Mrs. Carwin has just passed away a few weeks ago, so she was unable to be here, and so her children are also in a certain state of, grieving right now. Not only, having to have the loss of, this very impactful man here, but also just recently their mother. So it is my honor to be able to accept this word on behalf of all of Mr. Carwin's students. And I have Ann Kern here, and so I'll let her say a few words as well, because she's also a pretty rock star woman herself.
Thank you, Carly. I was actually very excited. I didn't know. I've known Carly for years, and I didn't know she was an FFA student, so especially at Greeley West. So that was kind of like, oh, we have another kindred thing together. I was in the Greeley FFA program with Dutch Carwin from 95 to 98. And I'm sorry that his family couldn't be here tonight either. They were wonderful. They are wonderful. I'm sorry to hear about the passing of Mrs. Carwin. But I see a lot of people here that would be considered Carwin's kids. He was the person that helped us, especially when we didn't fit in high school, get through high school. He gave a lot of people a trade, confidence, and just the ability to be successful in life. I see a lot of people I was in ag with, and my husband was one of Carwin's students, my brother, and it's just one of those things that this program, that it's grown as big as it has and as successful as it has, from being one of the kids and students in this class when there wasn't the support from the school or the district, or, you know, it was kind of a small program and it didn't get what it needed, to seeing it now. It makes me very proud to have been here and been part of it, and to be one of Carwin's students who he helped kick my butt through high school. And I went on to work for a United States Senator for 6+ years. My husband and I are successful ranchers now. So a lot of the success and the things that we have done in our lives is directly attributable to Dutch Carwin. So thank you everybody for being here tonight.
Thank you for sharing those remarks. Please accept this award as a gesture of our appreciation for the service your family has provided to your chapter. Mr. Carwin and our next honoree worked tirelessly together to have an incredibly successful and diversified program. Please turn your attention to the screen as we learn a little bit more about our third honoree, Mr. Conklin.
Mr. Conklin plays a huge part in the Greeley FFA history, as he was the horticulture teacher from 1983 to 2013. Mr. Conklin served alongside Mr. Carwin and Mr. Longacre for many years, leading Greeley's vocational agriculture. He received numerous awards for his career development teams both in floriculture and nursery landscape, building the most recognized horticulture program in the state. Mr. Conklin is the perfect fit to be a legendary owl for his dedication to the students, agriculture, and advancing service within the Greeley community.
It is my pleasure to invite Sarah to accept Mr. Conklin's award.
I'm going to talk about my friend Paul Conklin for a minute. Paul called me early this morning. He's caring for his elderly dad back in Minnesota. He got the call last night that he needed to return to Minnesota, so him and his wife, Jeannie, got on a plane this morning, and they called me right before they left this morning because they were disappointed they couldn't be here with us tonight. But I'm going to share a couple of memories of Paul Conklin because I've known him ever since I was a freshman in high school. I didn't go to Greeley West High School. I went to Valley High School down the road. My very first interaction with Paul Conklin is I was at a creed speaking contest, and I was getting ready, and I was standing in the hall ready to go present the creed, and I was as nervous as all could be. And Mr. Conklin looked right at me and he goes, "Did you remember to brush your teeth before you came to contest tonight?" And being this petrified freshman already, and he broke that humor and made it so I was a little more comfortable to go out and present that creed. And then I got to serve with him while I taught at Eaton High School for 5 years. We were in the same district. We got to work together. And then his last 5 years of his career, my first 5 years here at Greeley West High School, I got to work beside an amazing man. Anybody that can motivate students to learn 200 scientific names of plants and be able to identify them, and that takes pure motivation and desire and teacher ability that's far beyond my own, because I can't get that many plants to memorize myself. But Paul's a rare breed. In the state of Colorado, we only have a few hort programs. But Mr. Conklin was recognized not only at the state level for all his accomplishments and the things that he could teach and do, but at the national level. If you talked about Paul Conklin at any national event, and there was horticulture teachers in the room, they knew who Paul Conklin was because of the quality of his program and the effort that he gave on behalf of students. So I'm happy to accept this for him and Jeannie, and thank you all. And I'm going to just share one more thing. When I learned about the Legendary Owl program, I'm an ag teacher. I've been an ag teacher for 25 years. Every student teacher I have, I mentor them all the way through their careers. I still talk to my first student teacher that I had 22 years ago when he became a principal, and we had a long conversation about his desire to move from the classroom to becoming a principal, and was that the right move for him at this time. And then I'm going to talk specifically why it was a driving motivation, and I asked my Ag Ed Council and my students, and we started digging and looking for alumni members, because the Legendary Owl program to mentor young teachers, that's what Mr. Carwin did for me. As a young rookie ag teacher at Eaton High School, I was in a vicarious position. They told me that if I didn't make that program successful, they were going to close it, and that I would be without a job in a year. And every week, I slaved away. I'd stay at the school till 10, 11 o'clock at night, making sure everything was ready for FFA activities, for my lessons. And every week, on Tuesday or Thursday, Dutch Carwin would knock at my door, because I'd still be at the school, and he'd come in and he'd tell me it's time to go home. But even though he'd tell me it's time to go home, he'd spend 30 minutes and we'd talk about lessons, we'd talk about things in the shop. He'd want to see everything there was. So for me, it was a natural fit with the Legendary Owl program to bring 3 amazing teachers that I've known about, got to serve with, who mentored me to make sure that we did this for them. So thank you all for helping put these 3 men into the Legendary Owl program. I wouldn't be the teacher without them.
To keep this legacy of these legendary owls alive, we would like to present this plaque to you, Mr. Longacre, to hang it in the new classroom for the next decades to come. One thing you will know on the plaque is there is a 4th. Legendary Owl is from all your students, families, and community members. Your impact over the last 14 years has been immeasurable. We did not want to miss this opportunity to honor you alongside these legendary men. Let's turn our attention to the screen to hear what a few of your many students had to share about you.
Being an FFA student under the guidance of Mr. Kelly Longacre, I think there's been many moments that I can look back upon and remember, but I think my most favorite is right before district officer interviews. It was the first time I interviewed in front of a panel, so I was very nervous. I didn't know what to expect, and I just remember having a conversation with him right before. He was very reassuring, let me know that everything was going to be all right, and thankfully everything was. And that's why I think he's very deserving of this Legendary Owl, is because he approaches every situation with such humility, but he's also the loudest voice in the room when he needs to be. And he's the biggest advocate for his students, for his coworkers, for anything that he really believes in. And seeing that firsthand, it's very inspiring and something that I strive to be, because he's been one of my mentors since I was very young, and I cherish him a lot for everything he's taught me. So thanks a lot, Mr. Longacre.
Hi, my name is Aliyah Blackwell, and I was Kelly Longacre's student for 3 years. In those 3 years, I have hundreds of memories with Mr. Longacre. Mr. Longacre tells us that we can stop at Longacre Ranch. We pull in on that Fort Morgan dirt road, and over the hill come Kelly's cows, already running and excited to see him. If anybody knows anything about Mr. Longacre's livestock, it's that they're more pets than anything. We pull in and we lay out this feed, and we're sitting there and asking Mr. Longacre questions about his cows. And we all know that Mr. Longacre has a story about every single last one of them. So we're sitting there, enjoying the moment, listening to Kelly's stories. And eventually it's time to go home. So we load back up on the bus, wave goodbye to the cows, and head back home. no matter how bad any of us definitely wanted to stay and sleep out in the field. I think in that moment, there's something really special that shows that Mr. Longacre is the true definition of a legendary owl. Mr. Longacre not only demonstrates outstanding stockmanship and stewardship for the land, but he takes teaching agricultural education to the next level. Mr. Longacre touches the hearts of thousands of students and encourages hundreds to go into agriculture. Even the students that maybe decide that agriculture isn't for them, they leave Mr. Longacre's class knowing a little bit more about ag, a whole lot more about success, and more importantly, they leave with a friend. Mr. Longacre is the type of person that you can call at any hour of the day, and he will always be there to listen to you, and always offer advice or help if needed. Mr. Longacre truly shows that agriculture is more than a career. It's a lifestyle, it's about family. Mr. Longacre, I truly believe that there is nobody else that deserves this award more than you.
I'm only supposed to cry when my seniors leave me. You're my kids. You're my hopes, my dreams, my future. I care about each and every one of you, and thank you.
And I have a few words to say about Mr. Longacre. He's always been there. He's a person that you can just talk to whenever there's a problem. He's just there to talk. He'll talk about anything you want. Like on the bus home from Stock Show, I talked to him all the way about cows. And I've learned over the years, always listen to his stories. They are the best stories ever. You will never have another story like it, but you're my favorite teacher, and you've always been there, and I just gotta say thank you for everything you've done for this program. As a current member of the Greeley FFA chapter, I have each of these teachers, now legendary owls, to thank. Their commitment to the student success sustained this program through multiple decades. Several physical homes and innumerable cultural and community changes. It is our honor to present to Mr. Thorne a $10,000 pledge, endowing the membership and solidifying the legacy of Greeley FFA's four legendary owls. Stories of impact that truly demonstrate the legacy of each individual honored tonight. We are able to celebrate more than 100 years of agriculture education in Greeley community because of these legendary owls. Let's give them another round of applause. A critical piece of local program success is a strong alumni and supporters group. I would like to invite Siri Turnbow, Greeley FFA Alumni President, to the stage.
Thank you, Tucker. Thank you, Tucker. I'm Siri Turnbow, and I'm the Agriculture Education Council President. And I've been involved since spring 2017 when I joined a meeting shortly after attending the first annual Farm to Table event, which our next Farm to Table event will be coming up soon. Two of my children have graduated from the program and were highly involved in creating projects for the Farm to Table and raising livestock for their SAE. What they learned through leadership, networking, and hard work is definitely shown through their careers today. I do not regret any decision to become involved with this fabulous organization, which was created in order to assist and support our agriculture teachers and their students. The membership is open to anyone who is interested in supporting and promoting agriculture education at the FFA and local, state, and national level. There are multiple ways to give, serve, or connect with us. You can give by contributing to the general fund or scholarships that support graduates pursuing higher higher education, or to sponsor CDE teams or students. You can also serve by getting involved as a volunteer through coaching, mentoring, event planning, etc. Our goal year after year is to make sure that any student that wants to go to leadership conferences, districts, national convention, raise an animal, etc., is able to do so. Our next event, the Farm to Table, we had you guys put your name in a hat today to see if you could get a ticket. It will be on April 14th. If you would like to buy tickets after, we will be at our table out there. Let's see here. The winners of those tickets, you can meet us out there to pick them up, is Tim Call, Jerry Fort, and Russell Perney. And before I welcome Sarah and Caitlin up to the stage to wrap up for the evening, I would like to express my sincere thanks to Michaela Fitton and Kristen Schmidt for contributing so much time and planning for this event tonight. I would also like to thank all of the members of the Ag Ed Council for contributing their time and knowledge to the Greeley West FFA. Please join me in a round of applause. At this time, I would like to welcome Sarah and Caitlin to the stage for closing remarks.
Thank you, Siri. Our chapter is so thankful for your support. Folks, I don't know if you're aware or not, but over the last 6 years, the hard work of our alumni group has given our chapter more financial freedom to meet the needs of students through scholarships, access to supervised agricultural experiences at the school farm, and ease the burden of travel expenses for outstanding students like those participating in the National Career Development events. Let's give our alumni group another round of applause. They are legendary in their own right.
I'd like to thank you on behalf of the entire Greeley FFA chapter. To each of you for choosing to spend your night with us, for those of you that were able to attend our tour of the new facility, we hope you enjoyed your sneak peek of where our program is headed. I encourage each of you to take a tour around the lobby to view the mementos of each chapter history. Enjoy some refreshments, reconnect with friends from the past, and engage with current students to learn more about Greeley FFA today. Don't forget to swing around the Give, Serve, Connect table to touch base with our talented alumni group. At this time, we would like to welcome Aiden to the podium.
Thank you, Caitlin and Sarah. Several months ago, we set out with a goal to create an event that enabled generations of Greeley FFA members, supporters, and friends to honor the past, celebrate the present, and prepare for the future. After what we just experienced, I think we can heartily say, mission accomplished. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Stick around so we can get to know you better, and we hope to see you again in April at our Farm to Table event. At this time, I would like to welcome our chapter secretary and chapter president back to the stage.
Madam Secretary, do you have any record of further business which should now be transacted?
No, Madam President, I do not. But don't forget, we will be in the lobby, so anyone who would like to take a group photo with us, you can.
Does any member know of any new or unfinished business which should be properly come before this meeting? We are now about to adjourn this farewell tour celebration of the Greeley FFA chapter. As we mingle with others, let us be diligent in labor, just in our dealings, courteous to everybody and all above, honest and fair in the game of life. I now declare the formal program of the celebration adjourned.